Hello, everyone. Sorry for the hiatus, but we're back with a brand new episode here on the Farm Traveler podcast. In this full interview, I am interviewing farmer Lee Jones, who is super popular on Instagram. He's got the Chef's Garden, he has a culinary institute he works with, and he came on our first episode in a long time to talk about the importance of eating seasonally and how that can offer you opportunities to support local farmers, whether that's going to the farmer's market or even buying online. We're also going to talk about why he doesn't label his food or the food that they grow at the farm as quote unquote organic, and really some really cool things you can do at home to eat seasonally, try new food, and to get inspired by chefs online. This was such a cool interview. Farmer Lee is a wonderful storyteller. Go check him out. The link's below whenever you're done with this episode. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I had a blast chatting with him. So please enjoy the interview. Farmer Lee, I've got to hand it to you. You've got the coolest background of any interviewer, of any guest I've had on the show. So I'm jealous. You've got a good looking setup there.
Oh, thank you very much. It's just nature surrounding us.
That's true. All right. So for any of our listeners, I'm posting this on YouTube as well so people can see it. But for our listeners that might not know you, I think you are one of the more dapper farmers out there. You've got the bow tie. What's the idea behind the bow tie?
Yeah, well, one of the few books that I read in high school. I'm not proud of that, but we used to think, what is it called, the Cliff Notes? We used to think it was cool to read the Cliff Notes and see if we could get a B without reading the book. We thought we were really getting away with something brilliant, right? Not so much, but The Grapes of Wrath was really a book that kind of reeled me in, of course, by John Steinbeck.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, and many farms were lost, and the families lost their farms, and they loaded on all their belongings onto one old truck and everything that they could put on, and maybe the plow and 3 generations and the family dog and the goat, and maybe a cow, anything they could to start over. And there were some large ranches and farms that when they had orange or peach harvest or apple harvest, the word would go out and hundreds, if not thousands of farmers would come into these places, camps. And sometimes they were out of gas and they would push the vehicles in, or they were flat tires. And all they were doing was trying to make a living for their families. And they were really taken advantage of. They would be paid perhaps $1 a day to help harvest, but then charge 50 cents to stay in the camp and another quarter for a hot shower and a meal. And it was almost as if they ended up owing at the end of the day's work. But they were really down and out on their luck and just looking for a place to work and earn a living for their families. There's a particular scene on a Saturday night, as worn and torn as the clothes were of the farmers. They had their overalls on. They were worn and torn, but they were clean. And they had white shirts on, and they had bow ties, and they had a square dance. And despite their hardships and being flat broke and down and out on their luck, they maintained their pride and their integrity, and they had the square dance. Little did I know that at 19 years old, a mere 2 to 3 years later, our family would endure a similar hardship. 22% interest rates, which perhaps are hard for us to believe as we're grumbling about them rising to 6.75 and 7% right now. And then a very devastating hailstorm, and it literally wiped out my parents' 25 years of work. And the banks were closed, and they auctioned off every single thing we owned, right down to my mother's car and our house, every tractor, every piece of equipment, and we literally crawled away. And so I actually have a registered trademark with the U.S. Attorney General's office. I do not own another pair of pants. I've been to New York City. I've been a judge on Iron Chef.
No way.
I've been on the Today Show, on Rachel Ray, on many different things, and to church and weddings. I've conducted weddings. I've been to funerals. I don't own another pair of pants. So if you have seen this fat guy in a pair of overalls and a white shirt and a red bow tie today, you've seen him yesterday and you've seen him tomorrow. I will be buried in them. It is part of who I am. I literally, if you were to look in my closet right now, all the overalls are on the first rail and all the white shirts are on the second rail up above. There's an old farm saying that says you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, so I might as well go as the farmer I am. And for every small farm, for everybody that remembers an aunt or an uncle's farm, for everybody that ever dreamed of having their own farm, I want to represent the little guys out there. We're a small family farm. We're grateful for the privilege to be a small part of a big industry, and we're grateful for that privilege, and I want to represent that.
I love that. I feel like a lot of people think like right now they hear the term factory farming and they're like farms are just owned by all these big corporations. But I mean, what, like 98% of farms in the United States are family owned and operated. So usually it's a lot of the little guys out there that, I mean, they've got contracts and stuff, but family farms are still, do you think, very much alive and well?
I think that they are. I think that they're ever so important. One of the numbers that's somewhat alarming to us is that the number or the volume of imported food into our country is continuing to rise. And I believe without some support in some means that in 5 years' time, all commercial or commodity fruits and vegetables will be imported in from another country, from a third world country, because the labor is extremely cheap there, $2 to $3 a day, and they continue to put restrictions on the amounts that we need to pay and what we need to provide, and it makes it really a challenge. So on small family farms, we do more of that work, and we try and create a niche for our product and differentiate it enough that we can build some margin in there. We want to pay our team members here on the farm a fair and competitive wage. Otherwise, the good people will go to some other industry. So it's important for us to have hospitalization and vacation days and personal days and try and give them those same benefits that they might expect in some other arena of work. That being said, there's a cost to that. And we're either going to pay for that differentiation of clean food, or we're going to buy commodity products. And if that does shift, and it is, the numbers moving, if that does shift to all coming in from another country, there's very little restriction on what they're using to grow this or to control the insects or the weeds. And it's a pretty alarming thing.
Right, yeah, that's something I hear a lot about. Like if something, for example, is coming from Mexico and it's labeled as organic, their organic rules are a lot less strict than ours, correct?
I'm not aware of exactly what those rules are. I think that the whole organic thing could be an entirely different conversation. We don't promote anything that we do as organic. If you think about organic, it's the elimination of things from the equation. I believe that has been politically affected as well. We don't think that going organic is far enough. Organic means the elimination of things from the equation. There's a misconception that is a more nutritious product. You see a picture of Tom Smith and his little daughter in a cute little dress at whole check places. I won't name the names, but we know the whole check that we can easily have $300 in the grocery cart without batting an eye. In the meantime, the product is being supplied by a semi-load of produce or many semi-loads of produce coming in the back door, while they have a picture of Tom Smith and his 6 acres, which they may buy something from Tom Smith and his daughter, but that's the photo they're using. Our focus really is about growing the most nutritious, healthiest, clean food that we can. We have a saying: healthy soil, healthy vegetables, healthy people, healthy environment. There's more life below the Earth's surface than there is above. We believe fundamentally all life starts with healthy soil, balanced soil. Trevor, you've heard your parents say maybe, or a grandparent or somebody, an older generation, say, well, I think I need some vitamin D. I'm going to go get some sunshine. Right? Have you heard it before?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
My guess is the listeners have all heard somebody in their world say that. But, is it true? Is it a fable? They say it tongue in cheek. there's so much more truth to it than we really understand. If you take that concept even further, what's really cool is that different types of plants will harvest different types of energy from the sun. If we can get our mind around the idea that our body is a receptacle for energy from the sun, and we know that it collects vitamin D, we do lab analysis on the soil. Just like all of us as an adult at some point have gone and had blood work. They draw blood, they can give you a printout and tell you you're high in iron, low in iron, high in calcium, low in calcium. A complete printout of what's going on in your physical makeup. And then they try and administer that through vitamins or whatever they need to try and get that balance. We think that God designed a system that's far better than anything that we can fake out chemically or synthetically. I'm not trying to cast my aspersions on any of your listeners. That's our personal opinion. Nature has a way of creating a balance. It's only humans that have really mucked it up in the last 125 or 150 years. The nutritional level in vegetables in the last 100 years has gone down 50 to 80% and continuing to go down. Trevor, that's only half of the news. 50 to 80% decline in the same 100-year time period. A 3,000% increase in kidney, liver, heart, cancer disease, attention deficit disorder, autism, childhood obesity, allergies, diabetes. My bet is, and I wouldn't bet the farm, but my bet is there isn't any listener here that doesn't have somebody in their immediate circle of friends or family that isn't suffering from one or more of those diseases. Oh my gosh, 3,000% increase in a 100-year period? Now, you're a young guy. You think 100 years sounds like a long time. I'm an old geezer. I'm 62. And I'm coming to realize that 100 years is really not very long. So a 3,000% increase in a 100-year period, it's not sustainable, Trevor. And so with the nutritional levels going down and those increases or occurrences going up at that rate, we really have an issue. I am not part of it. My brother's not part of it here at the Chef's Garden. We are talking to the folks, but the folks that developed a documentary called Kiss the Ground, they talk about the fact that perhaps on this trajectory, we have about 60 harvests left. Okay, Now, I hope that there's more than that left. This documentary was done 4 years ago. If you have not seen Kiss the Ground, I think you can watch it on Netflix. Go watch Kiss the Ground. I've watched it about a dozen times. It's a little sciencey, but it's really interesting. The precursor to that, or the postcursor to that, is Common Ground, and that's just breaking out now. And I would really highly recommend everybody watch that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go watch it. I feel like there has been this huge, trend where it used to be everybody focusing on organic, but now we're focusing more on regenerative agriculture. And I've heard this phrase over and over again from farmers and ranchers. It's feed the soil. Like whether you're growing row crops or whether you've got livestock, if you've got healthy soil, you can in turn have healthy plants, healthy crops, healthy animals. And I like you're saying it's like healthy soil, healthy vegetables, healthy people, healthy environment.
You are what you eat. And I think that that's really incredible. So we do lab analysis on the soil. We find out what it's deficient. And then based on those deficiencies, we're planting crop specific. We're only a 350-acre farm. To make it even smaller, Trevor, 2/3 of our acreage, it's an unprecedented commitment. 2/3 of the acreage is committed every single year to harvesting the sun's energy. It could be clover, alfalfa, buckwheat, rye, Sudan grass. We have a 15 species planting that we're planting. You're harvesting that energy from the sun. And then the next year when you plant the crops in there, it's picking that back up. And we've got a lab right here on the farm. We've got 3 scientists on staff. We're seeing nutrient density, nitrate oxide levels that are 150 to 200 to 300 times higher than the USDA average. Now, the USDA average is too low, but it is really trending in a good direction. Do we have it all figured out? We really don't, but we're on the right path. Of course, my dad always used to say you can be on the right side of tracks and still get run over if you're not going hard enough or going fast enough. So we've got to keep moving. There's a sense of urgency that we've got to get moving on this and really make the change. And it's up to your generation to be able to make those choices that are going to help support the things that we need for sustainability and survival. It's really critical. But there's hope, and that's the beautiful thing about this, is that we can change, we can get better, we can improve the soil, and we can improve the health of our lives and those of our children and their children's children. It's exciting that we can make that kind of change.
Oh, it is. Yeah. And the example you talked about capturing the sun's energy and then getting it ready for the next crop, that sounds like a very intensive version of crop rotation, which I've seen a lot more farmers do over the course of the last 15 years or so.
And you know what's really cool? We used to think that in between the rows needed to be all weed-free and clean and pretty. Guess what? We're planting cover crops in between the rows.
Yep.
It's capturing the energy from the sun. It's helping build the biodiversity and the biology in the soil. The crops that we're growing to consume are picking that back up, and it's showing up in the results. You can taste the difference in this stuff, but you can also prove that it's more nutritious. And that's pretty exciting. Our goal is to produce the cleanest, healthiest, most nutritious food humanly possible.
It's funny what happens when we kind of go back to basics, like when we're figuring out really what nature has best designed for us, and we focus in on that instead of having to pump in all these chemicals, all the pesticides, doing monoculture. Like, we figure out, hey, if we do it the way nature intended it, we can have better soil, healthier plants, and healthier diets, which I think is a win-win. A win-win-win, actually.
A win-win-win. That's exactly right. My dad used to have a saying that the only thing we're trying to do is get as good as the growers were 100 years ago. And if you think about that, it was pre-chemical, it was pre-synthetic fertilizer, and the nutritional levels were higher, Trevor. That's pretty astounding to think that with all the technology and with all the brilliance that we have available at our fingertips today, with AI, with everything that's available, our nutritional levels were 50 to 80% higher 100 years ago, and we weren't using any of these chemicals or synthetic fertilizers.
Yeah, it's getting back to basics. I saw a post a couple weeks ago on Facebook, and it was talking about this shipping container company. They're like, oh, we have a new revolutionary technology that's going to transform shipping across the oceans. They're like, it's essentially a very high-tech sail that they have on these huge shipping containers. And everybody's like, so we're going back to sailing ships because it's more sustainable and it's better for the environment. I'm like, yeah, sometimes the old ways are the best ways.
I love it. I love that. That's brilliant.
All right, so like I mentioned earlier, I discovered you on Instagram. Your videos are awesome, and I believe yesterday or Monday, you posted something about asparagus and how important it is to eat seasonally. So that's something I haven't really dove a lot into. Can you tell us more about why we should really pay attention to what we're eating seasonally?
Well, let me see if I can paint you a picture. And I don't want to misdirect because I'm trying to suggest that it's cheaper. Out in the country here, we tend to try and rest on Sundays. It sort of goes back to some biblical and religious beliefs, but we want to try and do that as much as we can. Do we have to do some things on Sunday? Occasionally we do. But we want to be able to try and give our team Sundays off to spend with their families if they'd like to go to church. But most importantly, we don't want to inhibit them or prohibit them from doing that because we're asking them to work. But if you can visualize the families in the car, it's a Sunday afternoon, they're out riding through the countryside. A lot of us farmers do what we call road farming. We drive by the other farmers and see what their farms are doing and how they're getting along. And
a little bit of spying.
We wouldn't call it that. But just, but you're out in the country and there's a picnic table. And there's some of the most beautiful, vine-ripe and juicy red tomatoes. And the quart basket is filled so full that you could not get another tomato on that quart if you tried. And there's a can there, and it's self-serve. And it's a kind of tomato that when you eat it, you've got to have the tomato in one hand and a hanky in the other. Because the juice is just going to drip down your chin, and you want to lick that off. It's that good. And they're $6 a quart. Now, I'm not trying to paint this story because it's cheaper. I'm trying to paint this story because it's better. So you've got that image. Now it's January. We're shipping them in from somewhere. They gas them to get them ripe. you'd be better off to throw it away and eat the cardboard that it was shipped in because there's no flavors, there's no juice, they're white in the center. You could throw them against a wall and they wouldn't break, and they're $9 a pound. So I think that Mother Nature provides such a natural rhythm to what we should eat. People ask me all the time, it's one of the most frequently asked questions, Trevor, what's your favorite vegetable? What my favorite vegetable is what's in season. The walk through the garden today. Now, I don't know whether people can see what we're doing, but I've got a quart of strawberries in front of me. I'm eating those 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times a day right now. They're just that good. Asparagus. I think that when it's in season, we should eat it 3 times a day. And when it's out of season, we should lust for it for 10 more months. I think that your body requires and will even ask of you, if you'll listen and be tuned into your body, of specific things. I don't know if you've ever had that, but there's times where my body says, you need kale. You need Swiss chard. And if you're really tuned in, it'll tell you what you need. But Mother Nature provides that natural rhythm of what we should be eating. I want to eat what's in season because it just makes the most sense. It's not about buying local. It's not about the fact that it's cheaper. It's about what's right. I love it. My favorite question in the world, we get to work with some chefs around the country. I love when they call and say, Farmer, I'm developing my fall menu. I'm developing my summer menu. What should I be putting on the menu? You put on the menu what's in season. You have a lot of creativity out there. We see less and less of it. I think chefs are really becoming intuitive and in tuned with seasonality. But you get really creative and you're sitting down at a desk and you create this beautiful recipe and a beautiful menu, and it's got asparagus on it and it's January. Well, guess what? It's America. We can get anything, anytime, anywhere, as long as you're willing to pay for it. Now we're bringing it in from some country, which I'm sure is a great country, and they're growing product, but now we're shipping it with all of the carbon footprint miles, and who knows how old it is, who knows what was sprayed on it, and we're paying $20 a pound for a product that we could be eating asparagus when it's in season, when it's the best flavor, and it's the best value when it's in season. So that's really the idea of building your recipes. Look here's my recommendation. Get out to every farmer's market you can and support those folks. Go to those farmers markets, ladies and gentlemen. Please do it. Put your dollars where it counts. You want clean food, go to those farmers and support the ones that are trying to do it right. Don't go with a list of food that you need. Go to the farmer's market and let the farmer's market in that particular day decide what you're going to have for dinner. It's so much fun. And guess what? You're going to end up finding out a way to prepare something that maybe you haven't gone out of your comfort zone and cooked. We did a book, and it's called The Chef's Garden, a modern guide to unusual fruits and vegetables. It's too heavy to take with you to the farmer's market, but I will guarantee if you find it at the farmer's market, you can come back and you can find out a way to be able to prepare it. And so go for it. Let Mother Nature dictate what's for dinner tonight.
I love that, and that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about like crop rotation and not growing the same thing year after year after year. Like, not only is it helping our diets because we're eating more diverse fruits and vegetables, you're also helping the soil because you're getting them a time to replenish and different plants put in different nutrients. That's awesome. What are some of the more, I don't know, the less popular vegetables and fruit that you love cooking that maybe people might normally not cook with?
Well, you got to keep in mind now, I'm a farmer, not a chef. I get to work with chefs all over the country. In fact, we have a facility here on the farm called the Culinary Vegetable Institute, which is open to Airbnb and to corporate events and private events and things like that. And Chef Jamie Simpson mans that operation over there. But the idea is, to really play with vegetables. One that I'm particularly excited about is parsnips. Now, possibly a lot of the listeners don't remember. It's really not that far back in our history in the United States. But during the World War, raw ingredients were in such short supply. Steel, rubber. You could only buy one pair of shoes per year. I can remember my mother talking about only being allowed to wear one pair of shoes, and if they weren't too worn out, they got handed to the next generation. Gas was rationed. You were only allowed one tank of gas. Sugar was rationed because the raw materials were being used to be able to win and support the war effort. It was an all-in situation. And so those raw materials were really short. Well, guess what? A parsnip was actually used in baking to supplement for sugar because it would enhance and it would really give you sugar. Now, a lot of folks are surprised by that. Now, I believe that the parsnip is my mother's generation of what the mask is for us today. We all experienced COVID. We all experienced having to wear the mask. It was for our benefit and for other people's benefit. I'm not faulting wearing it. I think that it was good that we wore them for safety. But we're going to look back in history and say, oh, yeah, I remember the mask period. I found one in my glove compartment the other day, and I was thankful to be able to throw it away. We're going to think about the mask. My grandparents' generation, my mother's generation, think about the parsnip in the same way. So it's really gotten kind of a bad rap. Mm-hmm. And so we never saw our parents cooking with a parsnip because it reminded them of a time where they had to use a parsnip. And as soon as they didn't have to use the parsnip anymore, when sugar was plentiful again, we abandoned the parsnip and we went back to the sugar, and the parsnip was lost and it was never cooked again. So I think that listeners, please give parsnips another chance. Chef Jamie Simpson at the Culinary Vegetable Institute actually did, yes, you didn't guess it, a parsnip ice cream.
No
Incredible.
way.
It blew my mind. Yes, absolutely. Celery roots, salsa feed, Brussels sprouts, all kinds of fun stuff that's one-off. Go to that farmer's market and live out on the edge and bring something home that's a little different and figure it out. There's no right way or wrong way. There's better ways and worse ways. Bring it home and play with it and have fun.
Yeah, I love that. My wife and I, we were decent cooks whenever we got married, and we've gotten a lot better. We really hated Brussels sprouts, but then we had them at a restaurant, and they were amazing. And then we came home, we tried to cook them like that. We made them crispy. Of course, we added a little bit of bacon. That helped. But ever since then, we love Brussels with pretty much anything. So we learned it's always fun to experiment with stuff, and we might have to experiment with some parsnips. I can't remember the last time I've eaten parsnips at all. But, I mean, if parsnip ice cream was a good entryway, I will definitely try it. That sounds really interesting.
And, you know, folks, listeners out there, if you've had a bad experience with a Brussels sprout, I would ask you to give them another try. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. Brussels sprout, it's in the cruciferous family. It likes cold temperatures. We have several crops that we won't harvest until after frost. That was something that was just innately known by my grandparents and my great-grandparents. What happens, and there's a whole scientific explanation, but I can just tell you that it brings the sugar levels up. It freezes during the night, and it thaws during the day. It freezes during the night. We have a trademark on ice spinach. Now, the trademark doesn't mean anything other than fun to talk about, and it's really delicious. It's the same concept, guys, as ice wine. They harvest the ice wine when the grape is frozen because the sugar levels are high. That wine they use at dessert because it's so sweet. Brussels sprouts, when they're eaten at the right time of the year, which is after they've had some frost on them, are an entirely different animal. If you've had a Brussels sprout and it tasted bitter to you, yes, you physically can pick them in July or August, but they haven't been exposed to the cold, and they're going to be strong and rank and taste like cabbage. And some of you are going to just turn your nose up to it because it's just too cabbagey. Wait till October, wait till November, wait till December. They love cold temperatures. Eat them after. We'll pick those Brussels sprouts out in the field all winter long, and they just keep getting sweeter. And so I think it's really something to think about, eating things that are in season and when their season is here.
Interesting. I did not know that about it being sweeter because of the frost. Okay. Another reason you got to eat things in season, because it can totally change the flavor profile.
Absolutely. And folks, if you're really serious about this, you can go online. You can buy a thing called a refractometer or refractometer for under $50. If you have a pair of vice grips or a pair of pliers, you can take anything, a carrot or a beet or a spinach or a cabbage or a strawberry or a melon, and you can squeeze that into a liquid form. All you need is a couple drops. It's about all less than a foot long. It looks like a little miniature telescope. You
Yep.
put a couple drops on, you look through it, and it measures the amount of light density through the pulp, and it'll give you the natural sugar levels. It's measured in a unit they call Brix, Brix. The carrots that you guys get in the grocery store that are in the little plastic bags and they're kind of rounded on both ends, it's supposed to be a baby carrot. It's
Yeah,
not
quote unquote
really.
baby carrot.
Yeah, it's just this really cool machine that shaves them down and they get more money for them by calling them a baby carrot. Those will measure about a 3 on a Brix or on a refractometer. The carrots that we're consuming right now, these are measuring between 12 and 16. Now,
Oh,
what's
wow.
really cool is these carrots were harvested last November. Now, we're starting to pick spring carrots already. Much like a wine, you've harvested a young wine, and that wine isn't as good until it's had some maturity. Between day 120 and about day 240 is when the sugar levels are the highest on the carrots. What we're doing is replicating grandmother's root cellar with humidity and temperature and climate control. And we're trying to bridge the gap between when the fall ones are over and when the spring ones start. But this is a far superior carrot to the carrot that we're pulling out of the ground right now. Now, they will hit a point where it'll start to tank off and the sugar levels will go down. And then it's time to put them in compost. Hopefully we get them sold and you bridge that gap.
That's very similar to other vegetables like potatoes and onions, where they'll store them for a long time, and then whenever their taste gets good and they're ready to go to the market, then they'll go there. So they process a lot of them, store them, and then ship them off. That's a cool. Instead of like, a lot of people think that most of the time when you're harvesting something, you're going to sell it immediately. But some stuff, like you said, the carrots, it's best to just let them sit for a while, and I guess kind of age a little bit.
Well, and that's true. I mean, potatoes and sweet potatoes and onions, they have to go through a process called curing. And you want that skin. You want to we bring that temperature up around, I'm not sure exactly, but in the 60s. In the cooler, we bring that temperature up, and it actually shrinks that outer skin around and tightens it, and it seals it so it holds the moisture in. It's called a curing process. And then after they've cured for a certain period of days, then they'll bring the temperature back down and then hold them at a long point. If you don't cure them, they won't hold for that long period of time.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, can the same thing be true for some fruits, for example, like strawberries, or do you normally have to pick them and then sell them very quickly?
That's so perishable for us. Our berries, I've got a quart of berries in front of me. And whenever Trevor asks a question, it's a chance for me to pop another one in my mouth. And I'm telling you what, I was talking to Rita, our farm market manager here the other day. And I said, I can't think of anything any better than a June berry. And she said, well, I can. And it kind of made me pause for a second. She said, June berries in May. So we've had an early season. We covered some with clear plastic to bring the first variety along. But they are perishable, and you've got to move them. And, of course, we're open here at our farm market. We opened during COVID to be able to make our product available to the community. So the community had availability of good, clean, safe food, and they were supporting the community, and we were supporting them. But obviously on Tuesday, we don't sell as many as Saturday. But the plant doesn't really turn off or on based on the day of week. So we're pushing strawberries on Tuesday. On Saturday, we'll be pushing to have enough strawberries. So it's the yin and yang, and it's always the thing.
There you go. So I got to give my home state of Florida a shout out. Have you been to Plant City, which is the winter strawberry capital of the country?
I have. There's some amazing growers down there. It's a beautiful part of God's country. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've got a couple friends from there, and I didn't know it until I met them, but they are absolutely obsessed with strawberries. They have the Strawberry Festival where they have a dessert, and it's called strawberry pizza. Did you ever try it?
No kidding. Wow.
It's really good. It's like pastry with some cream and strawberries. It's really good. I mean, it's not like actual pizza, but it's a good dessert. You look at it and you're like, that looks legitimately like a pizza, and it tastes like it tastes like a strawberry pie, kind of.
Wow. I want to try that.
All right. So you are at you're at your farm store right now. So the whole goal of Farm Traveler is to connect farmers and consumers, because I think, the shorter the food supply chain, the happier and the healthier both can be. And so I always tell people, go to farmers markets, go to farm stores, because it's such a great place to meet farmers and learn where your food comes from. What kind of impact has your farm store had not only on your business, but also in the local community?
I think that it's certainly been helpful for the community during COVID.
Hmm.
Um, Before COVID, 100% of our revenue was directly based on restaurants. And of course, we know what happened with restaurants. They were in a really tough situation. And of course, that tough situation ran downhill. We had 168 families that were represented here on the farm. We made the decision not to furlough the farm, and we stayed open. We did the farm to family. We opened a retail. We made our product available to the community. The community came here and supported us. And I think it was really a great thing. Look, the reality is it's a new business. We had not been in retail for 45 or 50 years. I can remember as a kid, we had a roadside stand, but we evolved away from that and had not done retails. But the COVID, I think, launched us all into some uncomfortable territory. Not only did we open a retail here at the farm, but we also launched a nationwide home delivery. So regardless of where you were, if you're in a desert, food desert, or if you're in an area where you can't get availability to good, clean food, you could go online and you could order. We would ship from our farm to you. Or, Trevor, you've got an Aunt Matilda in Tampa, and she already has three of everything. You know you're supposed to get her a gift for a birthday or for a holiday, but what do you get her? She's already got three of everything. You get her a subscription to a box of vegetables that says, I care about your health and your well-being and your happiness and your productivity. Or if you're a corporation and you want to do something nice for your team members or your employees, or for your customers to say, hey, customer, thank you for buying from us. We'd like to send you a box of vegetables. We think we can lower health costs for companies. We can increase productivity and reduce sick days. This is a great investment. You're either going to pay the farmer or you're going to pay the doctor. And I can guarantee we're a much better value than the doctor. We all know how much we're paying for some of these drugs out there. It's ridiculous. It's a better investment to invest in clean food. Get the youngins going on eating fresh fruits and vegetables at an early stage. It'll be the greatest gift that you ever give them in your life.
How do you think we can get more people to do that, to buy locally produced food like you guys? It's been grown the way you guys grow it. I mean, I think working with chefs is a great way to show people, like, here's how to cook it. But what do you think are some other ways we can get more people interested?
Well, we have a chef here at the farm market on Saturdays, and we've taken on kind of a different idea. Chef Jamie and I were brainstorming. We were over in Italy doing some filming with Rachel Ray, and she suggested we go to this place before we did the filming just to look around because we had a couple hours to kill. And, of course, a glass of wine, and we started getting the creative juices flowing, and we had this idea of a concierge of sorts at the farm market. With basically salt, pepper, olive oil, a heat pan, a few simple components, you could basically cook up anything. So you've got somebody milling around. I mean, our tendency was, well, what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to sample using zucchini squash. Well, now we're one-dimensional. But the chef walks around, he sees he or she looking with their kids, and they're like, hey, have you ever tried those before? Well, never tried them. I never saw my mom cooking with them. Never saw my dad cooking with them. Well, come on, let's grab one. And you take it over, you got the cutting board, you cut it, and in a few simple minutes, you're trying a new vegetable that you've never tried before. And lo and behold, they like it. And it's pretty exciting. It's just getting outside of the box. Look, good for you doesn't have to be something that doesn't taste good. It's really the winning combination. If something is grown right and in balance, it tastes great. And we don't need all the added additives, if you will. I think it's just being willing to go out of your comfort zone and try different things.
Yeah, I'm very much guilty of this. I think the average consumer has gotten adjusted to convenience. We want something that's quick to cook, that tastes good. We don't want to go through a lot of processes, but the more we experiment in the kitchen, we can figure out that, hey, cooking some delicious Brussels sprouts is a lot less work than I think it might be. And we've either got to, go to a farm market and get inspired by a farmer or by a chef and all that stuff. I don't know. I think it's all about just kind of going outside of your comfort zone, like when, in your community, and finding what foods are out there.
Absolutely. And look, you don't have to be a chef to cook this stuff. use the chefs, use the books as inspiration,
Mm.
but play and have fun and create your own masterpieces. One of the things that Jamie really likes to do, Chef Jamie, is, you know, unless you've lived under a rock for the last 5 years, we all know that there's 40% food waste in America. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen the commercials where the strawberries come in, they stay in the refrigerator, they turn to mold, and then they get dumped out in the garbage. It's unconscionable that we would have a 40% food waste in America when we all have people right in our own communities, in our own counties, that are going hungry. It's unconscionable.
Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, I believe 40% food waste is understated. Why is that? Because there's been billions of dollars of marketing that says this is what a tomato's supposed to look like. This is what a strawberry is supposed to look like. This is what an onion is supposed to look like. But Jamie takes that a step further. If you think about a Brussels sprout, since we've been talking about Brussels sprouts, we'll continue on that theme, Trevor. I don't know how many of the listeners have ever actually seen a Brussels sprout grow, but in my personal opinion, and I'm a little bit biased because I love to talk about vegetables, I think that the Brussels sprout plant is one of the most beautiful, beautiful plants that exist. If you think about that plant, you can think about a Brussels sprout. It takes 8, 9, 10 months to grow it. It's a long season, particularly if you're not harvesting it until after the frost. It can grow up to 3.5, 4 feet, 4.5 feet tall, and you have all these beautiful leaves that are providing a canopy. It's nature's way of keeping the Brussels sprout from being sunburned. Can you imagine that Brussels sprout is out in the field for 6 months exposed to high temperatures, low temperatures, rain, wind, sun, and it's getting beat on. But those Brussels sprout leaves produce this canopy, an umbrella, if you will, to protect that Brussels sprout. We go on the stalk and we pick the Brussels sprout off. All this love, all this energy, all these nutrients, all the water that's gone to grow this beautiful plant, and the only thing we're doing is picking the Brussels sprout. Well, I would defy you and your wife. I would like to blindfold the two of you, and you would try collard greens and Brussels sprouts, and I would be willing to bet you $5 that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference in a Brussels sprout leaf and a collard green leaf. So the point is, why do we need to waste that Brussels sprout leaf? Let's eat the Brussels sprout leaf. That's all energy and nutrients and water and love that have gone into producing that. You know, if you look back in European countries where some of them that have had to survive over thousands of years, they had to learn to use every part of the animal. Of course, we get wigged out because the eyeballs were consumed in an animal, or the tongue, or the oxtail, or some pieces and parts. If you think about it, those that were in a more prestigious position could buy the better cuts of meat. Those of us that were in a poorer situation had to take the poorer cuts. And there's times when that's maybe all you could afford was those cuts that nobody else wanted. They could buy them cheap. And what they do, they turned them into great dishes. You see Thomas Keller, and you see Danielle Boulou, and you see some of the great chefs in America today, and they're doing an oxtail, which was a peasant's food 300 years ago because nobody else could afford, or somebody else couldn't afford that, and so they took the oxtail, and now they present it in a celebrated way, and they can charge a nice dollar for it. But, you know, we learned, and we think about that today, and we hear chefs talking about giving reference to the animal, to give full respect. If you're going to kill an animal, let's make sure that we respect that animal and utilize it in its entirety, not let that animal's life be wasted by wasting. We're slothful in the United States. It came easy to us. The land was good. The hunting was good. It was easy, and so we didn't use some of those pieces and parts. But why can't we take that same attitude and idea with a vegetable and look at the entire plant, and let's respect that plant and all the energy and all the love and all the nutrients and all the work that goes into producing that, and utilize the whole plant, and we can reduce waste, and we can have more food to feed more people.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've seen some chefs online and even just other farmers like yourself where they'll share what to do if a fruit or a vegetable is about to go bad. Like, for example, again, with strawberries, I saw one with strawberries. This guy was like, "Hey, these strawberries are about to go bad. Let me make fruit leather with them." It was like a fruit roll-up, and he made it, and it was super easy, and it looked super delicious. I mean, there are a multitude of ways we can go about without wasting so much food, whether it's that, repurposing ingredients, or even, like if you're a home gardener, compost. Like if you're trimming up your Brussels sprouts or trimming up whatever, you can convert that into compost for your garden and for your plants instead of just throwing out whatever else is left.
Absolutely. Vegetable stock, fruit stock.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't throw anything away. You can make a tea. I've seen Chef Curtis W. in Chicago make a corn silk and corn husk tea. So you husk the ear of corn, and now they make a tea with the corn husk and the silk. It's incredible. It's really good.
That's so neat.
Now, some of you may think that's a little corny, but quite frankly, it's good tea.
That's pretty good. I see what you did there. That was good.
I think you can dig it.
I dig it.
All right.
What do you think has kind of inspired all these chefs to try out of the box stuff, like to try making corn tea or cooking with parsnips that maybe their mom didn't even cook with? What do you think inspired that?
Oh gosh, it's hard to say what motivates any individual, but I think that there's so much brilliance, so much creativity. I think the bar has been set high by chefs from the last generation, and I think that they led the way and set the path for thinking outside of the box. I think that's been heavily influenced by Europe, but I think it's really about looking outside of the box and just being able to take the gloves off and say, why not? Why not try this? It's okay to fail. My dad had a saying that we have to continue to make mistakes at a faster rate than the competition. He also said that we make mistakes well, but it's okay to fail. The freedom to fail is okay. Because out of that, look at how many failures Thomas Edison had. It's unbelievable. Oh, yeah. And, you know, a lot of things happen by mistake. You're trying to create something. Heck, we've done the same thing. You're trying to create something, and out of that creation, maybe you never even achieved that, but out of that, something else came. It's the freedom to fail.
The freedom to fail. I like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't. This wasn't Thomas Edison, but the guy that made the 409 cleaner took him 409 tries to make it, and then he finally got it. I mean, it seems like whatever industry you're in, whatever career field you're in, failing can usually lead to whatever you're going to be successful at, and that includes in the kitchen.
Thank God it wasn't 420, right?
That would have been good. That would have been funny. That would have been some good marketing for them. That's funny. I don't know why this made me think of it, but you know, in Colorado a couple of years ago, where they legalized it, the mile marker 420, they had to replace it because it kept getting stolen. You know what they changed it to?
I don't know.
It was mile marker 419.99, and that stopped people from stealing it.
Is that right?
That was so funny. Well, Farmer Lee, this has been awesome. You are a fantastic storyteller. I think what you guys are doing, you're busy. You've got the farm store, you've got the Culinary Vegetable Institute. What all do you have going on? And also, you've got your book.
Look, we're just dirt farmers. We're passionate about growing vegetables. It is our goal to be able to grow the healthiest, the cleanest food that we can, to make it available to as many people as we can, and to treat each other well internally here on the farm, but also to try and do good. At the end of the day, it's never been about money. It's about trying to leave a legacy of fresh fruits and vegetables, of healthy soil, healthy vegetables, healthy people, healthy environment. And that's really the crux of what we're trying to do.
My ag teacher in high school, he had a good quote, and you remind me of it, and it's just really simple. It's leave it better than you found it. And it seems like you and your team are trying to leave your community better than you found it, people's diets better than you found it, and everything like that.
Well, we're trying. We're on a path, and we're moving. We don't have it all right. I'm sure that we will continue to make many mistakes, but we know what direction we're trying to go. My dad always had a saying that if you don't know what your goal is, you'll never get there. And we know what our goal is. Folks, if I can leave you with anything, eat the rainbow and eat your veggies.
Eat the rainbow, eat the veggies, and eat everything in season, which I'm honestly going to try a lot harder at doing that. You have convinced me, and I'm excited to see what culinary endeavors that can take me down.
I've been so excited to be on here with you today, Trevor. Thank you so much for having us here at the Chef's Garden. And please follow us on Instagram at Farmer Lee Jones, and of course the Chef's Garden, and keep us posted. And when you go to the farmer's market and you create your next new dish, Tag us in it. We'd love to see what you're doing.
I'll do that. So my hometown of Bluntstown, they're having a market this weekend. And I'm going to go and I'll tag you whatever I buy and whatever I cook. And I think that'll be super fun. But it was great chatting with you, Farmer Lee. You have got an amazing personality. You're a great storyteller. It was great to virtually meet you. And I have a few bow ties in my closet. I might have to break them out. So you've inspired me in a multitude of different ways.
Well, I think you could definitely rock the bow tie. Come on out and see us at the farm market. It's worth the trip. We're in Huron, Ohio. Farmer Jones Farm Market at the Chef's Garden in Huron, Ohio.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll try to get out there soon, and I will link everything below in the description of this episode, y'all's Instagram, website, and everything. But thanks so much for being on the podcast, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great night.